Enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. In my previous life, the Marquis of Yan married me out of gratitude, yet treated me coldly for years. I became the unloved Marchioness of Xianxia, notorious throughout the land. For his beloved beauty, he unleashed thunderous battles, conquering 10 cities in succession, while I became the laughingstock of all Yan territory. On the night I planned to divorce him, I was reborn to the day when the Marquis of Yan was forced to marry me out of obligation before everyone. I gracefully bowed and gently declined, saying my character was unworthy of becoming the Marchioness of Yan. It would be better if your lordship accepted me as a sworn sister instead. The gates of Xiangyang City opened wide as the vanguard cavalry galloped through, their victory cries echoing across the city. Great victory. The Marquis of Yan returns. The Marquis of Yan returns victorious. Lanterns gradually lit up from the magnificent Xiangyang Palace in the inner city to the markets of the outer districts. Not only was the palace busy preparing to welcome the Marquis, but commoners throughout Yan territory also poured into the streets just to catch a glimpse of their heroic lord. Everyone knew that Marquis Adrian Yan had consecutively captured 10 cities in this campaign, earning praise as a heaven-sent military genius. Yet what sparked the most gossip about this war was its cause. The Marquis, learning that Princess Sophia was besieged in Guangzhou, had marched his armies day and night, breaking through 10 cities in one sweep just to bring Princess Sophia back safely. Since ancient times, great generals have been matched with beauties. The Marquis of Yan was barely past 20, his armor gleaming, his spirit soaring to the heavens. Princess Sophia was also a renowned beauty of the Central Plains. Who could hear this story without exclaiming it was a match made in heaven amidst chaos? If I weren't already his wife, married to Adrian for years, perhaps I too would rejoice at such a tale. In the past, whenever the Marquis returned from any campaign, large or small, whether late at night or even in falling snow, I would trudge through the snow hours early to wait for him at the city gates. But now I only sat on the white jade terrace built high within the palace, gazing at Xiangyang City ablaze with torches, somewhat lost in thought. Among the long procession of the Marquis's black, armored guards entering the city, there was a simple white sedan chair, carefully escorted. I knew who it was, Princess Sophia. And I was certain that Adrian would be riding his black steed beside her, protecting her. The palace maids in Xiangyang Palace hurried along the corridors carrying trays, whispering excitedly to each other. The night wind carried their voices to my ears. I wonder what kind of person Princess Sophia is, to make his lordship immediately mobilize troops upon hearing she was besieged, even gifting 10 cities as her dowry. Such ultimate favor would make any woman in the world envious. I heard the palace servants say Princess Sophia was not only beautiful and gentle as a goddess, but had also been his lordship's companion during his difficult youth. Separated for years, now reunited, no wonder his lordship acted thus. Such a beautiful story. Yet a young palace maid suddenly spoke up timidly, interrupting. But his lordship already has a wife. She loves him so deeply. What will become of her now? Everyone in Xiangyang Palace knew 2 things. First, the Marquis of Yan had married the daughter of a loyal minister out of gratitude. Second, the Marchioness was not loved by the Marquis at all. I knew the Marquis married me only out of obligation, yet I had given him my whole heart in marriage. I was sent to the countryside as a child, growing up in rural fields, only brought back to Xiangyang at 15. I knew I couldn't compare to the noble ladies of Yan territory, much less to Princess Sophia who captivated all of the Central Plains. Yet I loved Adrian deeply enough. I could patiently learn the false courtly etiquette to be a wife who wouldn't burden him. I could travel thousands of miles, seeking famous physicians for his illness, nearly freezing to death in heavy snow. I could wait at Xiangyang Palace whenever he returned victorious, lighting a lamp and smiling in congratulation. Adrian was cold and distant. Never mind, his mother had said, even the coldest heart can be warmed by sincerity. I always told myself that my years of effort weren't in vain. On our wedding night years ago, Adrian wouldn't even look at me, but now we could at least share a bed. However, one night several months ago, he received a secret letter from Guangzhou and suddenly leapt from bed, grabbing his sword and donning his armor, leaving me only with his retreating figure rushing into the darkness. From then on, battle reports came constantly: 1 city taken, 5 cities, welcoming Princess Sophia. The Marquis's fury for his beauty became legend throughout the realm. Only then did I understand. Adrian did have a heart, but that fury wasn't for me. Only then did I know that heaven and earth's fate had its own destiny, which couldn't be forced. The Marquis's return would surely bring celebratory banquets and meetings with Yan's court officials. I returned to my chambers, reviewing palace accounts while waiting for him. I had barely begun when I heard palace maids bowing outside. Looking up, I felt only the night wind sweeping through the pearl curtains, blowing straight toward me. The Marquis strode into my chambers, his steps urgent, only slowing when 3 paces from me, his eyes fixed intently upon me. We hadn't seen each other for nearly a year. Adrian was travel-worn and exhausted, his silver armor stained with blood, looking darker and thinner, but his brows showed even more resolve, even more heroic spirit. Before I could utter, "My lord," he suddenly stepped forward, dropping to one knee before the low tea table in front of me, reaching across the table to grasp my face. His burning kisses fell urgently on my eyes, my cheeks. I wanted to turn away but couldn't struggle even slightly. The account books on the tea table caught on his sleeve, and he swept them to the floor with one hand. Before Adrian left for war, our relationship had been at its best in all our years together, a thawing of ice and snow. Though Adrian had gradually found pleasure in our marital bed, he was quite restrained, never displaying such passion before the palace maids. I gradually couldn't breathe, but suddenly I smelled a cold fragrance on his collar. This scent was rare, worth 1,000 gold pieces. Years ago, my father had bought some for me to compensate for not raising me properly. It was expensive because this incense was personally crafted by Princess Sophia, like plum blossoms in snow. It immediately pulled me from my daze, like a bucket of ice water poured over my head. While whispering in my ear, Adrian said in a low voice, "After months of campaign, I acquired many treasures. I let Sophia choose the finest ones, using over 10 carriages to bring them back for her. I wonder which you'd like to see first." I pushed his face back an inch, finally having some space to breathe and speak. "My lord, He didn't hear clearly and leaned closer, wanting to kiss me, but then heard me repeat myself. He froze immediately, my eyes glistening with tears. I was surprised I had actually said those words. "My lord, I want a divorce." His iron armor was cold. Adrian was already displeased I hadn't gone out to welcome him, and being rejected for a kiss made his expression even darker. He suddenly stood up, half annoyed, half disbelieving as he looked at me. My hair was disheveled, but I pulled out a divorce document from among the scattered account books. Adrian left angrily. Before going to sleep, my face was still wet with tears. When I woke, I suddenly felt something was wrong. I was wearing white clothes, even the servants wore white. My sister-in-law from the Wei family held me in her arms, urging me to grieve less. I touched my swollen eyes. If this scene wasn't a dream, I had to believe I'd been reborn, returned to my father's funeral. That year I was only 16, brought back from the countryside to Xiangyang City, less than half a year ago. I had just begun to trust and feel close to my father when he sacrificed himself protecting the new Marquis Adrian. It was also this year that the Wei clan elders forced the Marquis, who had come to carry the coffin and attend the funeral, to marry me to elevate the Wei family's position in Yan. In my previous life, I was just a girl who'd just arrived in Xiangyang, ignorant of the world. I only knew to cry red-eyed over my father's death, and that after tonight, the Marquis would marry me. Only after marriage and I learned the full story. Adrian wanted to repay the debt, but absolutely not by marrying me. In the cold morning frost, I rushed to the morning hall, hoping to avoid repeating past mistakes and forming that ill-fated bond. When I arrived breathless, the atmosphere in the morning hall was extremely tense, like a bowstring pulled taut. The clan elders refused to close the coffin, crying to Adrian, "If you don't marry the Wei family daughter, her father will die with eyes open. We cannot close this coffin. We'll carry this open coffin to Xiangyang city gates, let everyone see what kind of person the new Marquis really is." Adrian stood to one side with 2 or 3 trusted aides, all with grim expressions. Many had gathered to watch. The Marquis had just ascended to power, with surrounding lords circling like tigers eyeing prey, anxious within and without. This threat, though shameless, was effective. A lord being publicly coerced using gratitude to this degree. Just as he was about to agree, I suddenly burst into the morning hall, prostrating myself on the ground. I shook my head, saying, "There are countless ways to repay kindness. I'm just a country-raised girl who knows nothing. With such character and talent, how could I be the Marquis's wife?" I looked up, meeting Adrian's astonished gaze for the first time. Fighting back tears, I said softly, "It would be better if you took me as a sworn sister." The clan elder's expression immediately changed, but the onlookers kept nodding. Adrian and his aides also relaxed. Having an unrelated sworn sister was much better than having a wife bound to this greedy Wei clan. Moreover, this would fulfill the new Marquis's reputation for treating the loyal minister's daughter well. Nothing could be better. Adrian only pondered briefly before immediately agreeing. Because of me, she lost her virtuous father. I cannot compensate for that, but from now on, though we don't share blood, Adrian, will certainly protect her for life. I knew the Marquis kept his promises and would surely care for me wholeheartedly as he said. I was silent for a moment, then bowed in thanks. The heavy stone of guilt in my heart finally fell. From now on, Adrian and I needn't be entangled in unhappiness for years over a marriage contract. Adrian had someone in his heart. I could also find someone kind who truly loved me. This was the right course correction. From now on, all debts cleared. I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to leave when Adrian called me back. I turned to see him frowning as if confused by his own words of retention. He looked at me deeply, but finally only said, "The night frost is heavy. Be careful, sworn sister." The new Marquis not only personally carried the coffin and attended the loyal minister's funeral, but also took his daughter as a sworn sister. Everyone exclaimed at the sovereign's great grace. Paper money flew in the streets, an auspicious time to carry the coffin out for burial. This wasn't my first time experiencing my father's funeral, but going through it again in this life, a dull ache still lingered in my heart. Beside me, soft whispers reached my ears, the volume low but deliberately meant for me to hear. They were some Wei clan female cousins, those not close to me, upset that I'd refused the marriage with the Marquis, defying the clan's wishes. Indeed, a country girl. The elders found her such a good match. She won't be a proper marchioness, but eagerly accepts the worthless position of sworn sister. How laughable. I heard she has an unusual fate, which is why her father sent her to the countryside. Look, it's true she returned to Xiangyang for just half a year and her father died. Such a pity for General Wei, one life exchanged for just this. Before she finished speaking, I kicked the knee of the cousin nearest me, then drew back my foot to kick another. They didn't expect me to openly attack. All cried out in pain and fell. When they looked back at me, their faces showed disbelief. At this funeral, the Marquis himself attended. All of Yan's nobility came to pay respects. Moreover, I'd just returned to Xiangyang, most afraid of being called provincial, inferior, careful, not easily conflicting with others. Who would have thought I would dare kick people openly? The commotion was so loud everyone turned to look. The Marquis and clan elders at the front also glanced over, just in time to see me drawing back my foot. I knelt again, grabbing each person's collar with one hand, pressing their heads to the ground, making them kowtow several times before my father's memorial tablet. For a moment, only the women's pained sobs remained. The clan elder's face reddened with anger, pointing at me and scolding. "Eleanor Wei, how dare you be so disrespectful before your father's spirit?" But Adrian suddenly glanced at him. Just one ordinary glance, and the clan elder immediately broke into a cold sweat. The only daughter of General Wei, sworn sister of the Marquis, equal in rank to royalty, how could he criticize her? I released my hands, still clutching strands of hair I'd forcefully pulled from the cousins' heads. I stood straight, just in time to see Adrian's gaze upon me. He had witnessed all my crude behavior. In my previous life, I always tried to appear gentle, knowing he disliked crude women. But pausing only briefly, facing Adrian, I lowered my head about to explain that if they hadn't insulted my father, I wouldn't have been so angry. Then I saw the Marquis extend his hand toward me. He pulled me behind him, shielding me. He turned to look at the Wei family members with just one cold, decisive question. General Wei just sacrificed himself for the country. How exactly has the Wei clan been mistreating my sworn sister, forcing a weak young woman like her to lose composure at her father's funeral? The situation immediately reversed, especially with the Wei cousins still kneeling on the ground, holding their bleeding foreheads, almost thinking they'd heard wrong. A weak young woman. Who? I looked up, still able to see the Marquis's jaw tight with anger. He'd clearly seen me attack with his own eyes, yet unhesitatingly took my side. Adrian tilted his head, saying, "Don't be afraid. Whatever happens in the future, your sworn brother will support you." Though meant as comfort, it carried the pride and arrogance of a lord. When Adrian made a promise, he would certainly keep it. I curved my lips slightly, somewhat dazed. Adrian was actually a very good person. What a pity we'd had that wrong fate in the previous life. Having Adrian accept me as a sworn sister was really just casually giving him an excuse to repay the debt, not truly necessary to fulfill. Yet that day, Adrian not only questioned the Wei family for my sake, but afterward also assigned guards to escort me, and countless gold, silver, and jewels were delivered to me. Even a residence in Xianxia Palace was prepared for me. Not only did the Wei fam me as carefully as a real princess, but everyone in Xiangyang City knew Eleanor Wei, daughter of General Wei. Though her father sacrificed himself for the country, leaving her alone, she wasn't someone anyone could casually bully or oppress. Behind Eleanor stood her sworn brother, the new Marquis of Yan Adrian. However, Adrian as the new Marquis had many matters to handle. 2 months passed without me seeing him once. Only when he found time, after snow had fallen in Yan territory, did he take 2 days to bring me to the Yan clan's ancestral lands to pay respects, then hang my name in the genealogy, officially accepting me as sworn sister. On a day of heavy snow, we set out simply. Though rushed, the carriage I rode in was surprisingly warm. After traveling several days, I lifted the curtain. Wind and snow rushed in. Adrian and 2 or 3 guards rode ahead, expressions serious. The sound of lifting the curtain was nearly inaudible while moving, yet Adrian immediately noticed, spurring his horse closer to the carriage, blocking all the wind blowing in. He asked, "Tired from traveling?" I shook my head, looking at him intently. "Sworn brother, I'm not tired, but you really should find an inn to rest properly tonight." Adrian was young. At the peak of physical strength, continuous travel through heavy snow was normal for him. But these 2 months, he'd been handling state affairs day and night, recruiting new ministers, exhausting himself. Who knew if he'd had a good night's sleep? Between his brows showed only fatigue, all supported by youthful vigor. That's why in the previous life, just a few years older, after experiencing life and death battles, he developed headaches in his 20s. Only now did Adrian realize I was talking about his exhausted state. He appeared unconcerned. "I am master of Yan territory, not some weak scholar unable to bear burdens. What's this small hardship that I can't endure?" Adrian was never one to take advice. In my previous life as his wife, I had to use various tricks to change his mind, advising him enough. Now I was just a sworn sister, only making a suggestion. Naturally I couldn't force him to rest, so I said no more, lowering the carriage curtain myself, blocking out the curtain of snow and the Marquis's self-important face. The space suddenly became quiet. I was already drowsy, perfect for a nap, but discovered Adrian kept circling my carriage on horseback, several times wanting to speak with me. I didn't know what else to say to him, had no mood to care, just closed my eyes pretending ignorance. At noon when we stopped to eat, I finally left the carriage. Just in time to hear Adrian asking his guard, "Are there any good inns nearby?" I looked up surprised, meeting Adrian's gaze as if accidentally looking over, his eyes black as ink. He ordered that after lunch we'd go to an inn, rest for 2 days to recover our spirits before continuing. The guards had all mentally prepared to eat wind and sleep on bare ground during this journey. They were both surprised and pleased, but saw Adrian approaching me with a cold expression, unable to avoid some annoyance. Who would have thought this sworn sister would have such a temperament, daring to give the new Marquis a cold face, even bluntly lowering the carriage curtain. When he reached me, he blocked the blowing wind and snow, his attitude clearly already yielding. However, it was just one stiff sentence of concern: "Get in the carriage early. Be careful not to catch cold." Finally, somewhat unwilling, later when marching to battle, going months without rest, now just 2 days' travel is nothing difficult for me. I know your campaigns are arduous, which is why in my previous life, every time you returned from battle, I would light lanterns and wait outside Xiangyang Palace. From spring to winter, regardless of wind or rain. I looked up smiling, my gaze serious. I know, sworn brother toils for the people of Yan territory. In the future, naturally your military advisors and your wife will counsel you, but since they're not here, It falls to me, your sworn sister, to worry for you. If our elder brother doesn't rest well, how can he protect us? The wind and snow disheveled his hair. The new Marquis of Yan, after staring at my smile for 2 moments, clenched his hand inside his sleeve, then suddenly turned away, his hurried footsteps imprinted on the white snow. Only then did I clearly hear the stiff words he left behind. Understood. Don't be angry with me again next time, sworn sister. He had said these words in my previous life too. Back then we'd been married over 2 years, he was often away on campaigns, our meetings rare. Moreover, Adrian had never willingly married me. Despite my wholehearted devotion, our relationship remained cold. The Marquis's coldness, everyone of that era knew. The first time I felt his attitude toward me soften was during a spring hunt. Envoys from Yan's vassal states presented beauties to Adrian, and he casually nodded acceptance. In the latter half of the banquet, I not only refused to speak with Adrian, but wouldn't even glance at him. Though the Marquis was cold, I was usually lively as fire. My sudden silence, he could sense something was wrong. He turned back many times, only seeing my cold expression. But recognizing it was one thing, being willing to coax me was another. After the banquet ended, we had to traverse rocky paths to reach the hunting grounds. I carelessly stumbled, but Adrian steadily caught me. He knelt on one knee before me, signaling me to climb on his back. A Marquis willing to bend down and carry me. Mountains layered upon mountains, moss-covered stone steps. Lying on his back, I heard heartbeats, not knowing if they were mine or his. Married over 2 years, what I'd seen most were his hurried retreating figure and cold expression. This was the first time receiving such a response. For a moment I wanted to cry. Adrian said, I originally couldn't bear those beauties, but my soldiers haven't married yet and keep demanding wives, so I kept the beauties they presented. He added, next time you're unhappy, speak up if you won't pay attention to me. The Marquis, just turned 20, suddenly choked up, feeling love's bitterness for the first time, and said, I'll be sad too. The Marquis had already changed his mind, planning to rest at an inn for 2 days, but received an urgent letter about state affairs, forcing us to rush to Wyong City. Late at night, we traveled through snow but encountered assassins. The whistle of wind horses neighing, then the clash of swords. I curled in the carriage corner, breaking out in cold sweat, knowing not crying out would cause less trouble. After who knows how long, a sword outside flung open the curtain, a hand reached in pulling me out. Adrian embraced me, flipping onto his horse. Blood from his body soaked my clothes. Looking back over his shoulder, I saw only corpses strewn on the ground, white snow and red blood mixing together. This place wasn't safe to linger. After the horse ran 2 miles, Adrian behind me suddenly fell, using his last strength to grab the horse. We tumbled together in the snow. I struggled up from the snow layer, only seeing his face deathly pale, eyes tightly closed. His last words, clearly wanting me to go first. I naturally couldn't obey him. Fortunately, I grew up in the countryside, extremely familiar with horses. I made the horse lie down first, then gritted my teeth, using all my strength to lift Adrian onto the horse, letting him lean against me, then once again took the reins. Wind and snow cut into my face. Winter snow vast and boundless. Not knowing how far we'd run, blood on my hands from the tight reins had long frozen. When the horse died from exhaustion, I used the sword at Adrian's side to slaughter the horse for blood. I drank a mouthful first, then fed Adrian several sips. Finally, seeing his complexion turn slightly rosier, I filled a water pouch with horse blood, half carrying, half dragging Adrian. Struggling into the forest's complex snowy terrain. Finding a mountain cave for shelter, I built a warming fire and treated Adrian's wounds. When he woke, my face was filthy as I removed my shoes. My socks were full of frozen black blood, my calves covered in countless scratches from dry forest branches. Adrian frowned, his expression dazed. Though unconscious, he wasn't without sensation. Attacked countless times, this was his first time being protected by a woman as they fled, hiding deep in the mountains. Someone had even fed him a mouthful of horse blood, using cold, soft lips. He suddenly stirred. I turned my face back, only seeing Adrian suddenly close his eyes again. Not knowing why, I said cheerfully, "Thank goodness Sorn brother is all right. I just went out and caught a snow rabbit. I've already skinned it. We'll roast it to eat later. Brother, drink some horse blood to warm your body first, then follow this river down. There are some villagers' homes. When the snow clears we'll shelter there." Outside the cave, ice and snow covered everything, but inside the fire made it pleasantly warm. The woman's gentle voice held not one word of complaint. I heard Adrian with eyes closed say, his voice seeming softened by the fire, to Eleanor, Shangyang City cannot nurture a daughter like you. I froze, only now remembering what image I presented in Adrian's heart. Once angrily kicking cousins, daring to slaughter horses for blood, the appearance of a crude, wild woman. In my previous life I truly minded this aspect of myself, because Princess Sophia, whom Adrian held in his heart for years, matching her title, was an elegant, refined lady. When I first married the Marquis, it's laughable to say, having heard palace maids speak of Princess Sophia, I carefully studied her, wanting to imitate to please Adrian. Learning to wear white clothes like her, learning to write poetry like her. Not only was it useless with Adrian, but palace servants mocked that the new Marchioness only knew blind imitation. Later I decisively became myself again. Adrian's attitude toward me actually improved, but finally I understood actually my personality, to the Marquis fundamentally didn't matter. Not liking was not liking. Everything was useless, all forced. Now I just lowered my head smiling, casually saying, I didn't grow up in Shangyang. Naturally can't compare to those noble ladies. The campfire's light illuminated half of Adrian's face. His Adam's apple moved slightly, then said, that's not true. I looked up startled. Firelight flickering, Adrian looked at me, undercurrents surging in his eyes. You're better than all of them. When snow cleared and dawn broke, we followed the water flow, finding a villager's home for shelter. That night, Adrian began burning with fever again. The wound was poisoned, lasting until now was truly not easy. But the village had no physician. In the vast snow, finding a doctor was easier said than done. I asked the old woman in the villager's home to care for my gravely ill sworn brother, deciding to brave the heavy snow to find a physician. But just as I turned, Adrian with high fever grabbed my wrist, each word forced from his throat. Don't go. This is your sovereign's command. I turned back knowing I couldn't disobey sworn brother's orders, but had to disobey. If sworn brother suffered any loss here, Eleanor dying 10,000 times couldn't atone. I pried Adrian's hand loose and rushed into the wind and snow. Not that I wasn't afraid, I just believed I could do it. In my previous life I could even travel 1,000 miles for Adrian seeking physicians. When he had headaches, I heard in Yingxuan there was an old master best at treating this illness, so I rode day and night without stopping. The roads were distant then. Even the guards got lost halfway, but I still found the divine physician. Now I'm alone, but being careful, who's to say I won't succeed? Fortune favored us. On the road I met neither wolves nor bandits. Going straight to the city holding my jade pendant, I knocked on the garrison commander's door. One sentence about the Marquis being assassinated made him break out in cold sweat. In just over half an hour, all the best physicians in the city were dragged out. Fearing attention, the commander specially chose a small elite squad to rush urgently to the village. Thanks to skilled physicians and good medicine, plus Adrian being in his physical prime, the fever quickly subsided. But to heal properly, movement was inadvisable, so we temporarily sheltered in this small village. However, though the Marquis recovered, no one breathed easy yet, because the whole village was shrouded by his dark expression. His wounds had just improved when he began interrogating me, furious to the extreme. That day during the assassination, I told you to abandon me and go first, you didn't go. Last night with heavy snow, fierce wolves in the night, refugees fleeing. I gave a sovereign's command forbidding you to go out, you still went. Do you know from the moment you left, I lay in bed filled only with panic and anxiety, only blaming my own incompetence. If anything had happened to you, how could I face General Wei? I turned away, not saying a word. This scene was just like my previous life, no different at all. That year I traveled 1,000 miles for the Marquis seeking physicians. After finding the divine physician, he scolded me thoroughly. Back then I stubbornly said, if my father knew I was willing to exhaust myself like this for your lordship, he would only feel comforted. How could there be any question of facing him? This left the cold Marquis momentarily speechless. Before leaving, he fiercely said, so you truly don't care about my life or death. If you die, I needn't live either. Thinking back on this, I was momentarily dazed. When Adrian was so furious then, how much of it was genuine feeling for me? But the previous life couldn't be recovered, the answer unknowable. I looked up. Adrian was about to continue questioning, but seeing the tears in my eyes, his tone suddenly softened. I said quietly. I understand, sworn brother. The commander had hunted a wild deer, roasting it in the villagers' small courtyard for everyone to share. The old woman dug out 2 jars of aged wine. Everyone gathered around the fire, the atmosphere rarely relaxed. I sipped 2 small mouthfuls of wine, turning to find Adrian's position. Though he sat in the host's seat, he leaned into the shadows, using firelight to examine a dagger, expression calm, not harmonizing with the surrounding noise. I recognized that dagger. It belonged to Adrian's guard who died in the snow assassination. The year Adrian ascended the throne was undeniably extremely difficult. Secret power struggles, fierce battles, countless loyal supporters died for it. People said the new Marquis was ruthlessly decisive, forgetting he wasn't even of age yet. I carefully moved closer, offering him a cup of green wine. The wine is excellent, your lordship should try it. Adrian looked up, seeing only my smile. Then I turned back, melting into the lively conversation by the fire. Though that smile seemed to pass lightly, it immediately pulled him from the atmosphere of hatred. By the fire, several young military officers sat near the garrison commander, pushing forward a young officer with a red face. Emboldened by wine, he spoke to me. Miss Eleanor, the city has rare green plum blossoms. I wonder if you'd be interested. I'd willingly accompany you to view them. The youth's eyes shone bright, his expression awkwardly sincere. My lashes fluttered slightly. I had no marriage contract, sooner or later I'd need to meet suitors. This outstanding man before me, previewing him wasn't wrong. But then I heard a crack beside me. Everyone turned in surprise. The Marquis had stabbed his dagger into the deer bone, carving meat yet creating the momentum of wielding weapons. Adrian raised his phoenix eyes. I didn't expect the garrison soldiers to be so lazy, still having leisure time for flower viewing. Moreover, with strong winds and heavy snow. My sworn sister is precious as gold, what if she's blown away? The old commander quickly stood to mediate, first scolding the young officer for his impudence, then changing the subject. The atmosphere became lively again. Someone emboldened by wine asked Adrian, I wonder if your lordship, like other normal men, has a woman in his heart. The campfire crackled. After waiting several moments, Adrian hesitantly said, yes, she's unlike others, more vivacious, brave, dares to cry and throw tantrums with me, yet she's a very good woman. In 20 years of life, such feelings of both headache and joy are rare. She must be my heart's desire. I turned to look at the fire, momentarily stunned. I only knew Sophia had an elegant, gentle character, seemingly not matching these descriptions. Just then the old villager woman came to add wine, muttering quietly, the Marquis has no wife. Miss Eleanor has no husband. Pity the Marquis has someone in his heart, and their sworn siblings. That night when they knocked seeking shelter, I thought they were some noble newlyweds fleeing here. Her quiet voice dissolved into the light smoke rising from the fire, not knowing into whose heart it fell. In the latter half of the feast I spoke less, yet drank particularly more green wine. In my half-drunk state someone took my wine cup, my eyes couldn't open. Instinctively I grabbed that person's arm, but felt their body suddenly stiffen. They looked at me for a long time before gently wiping wine stains from my face with the back of their hand. A hand accustomed to wielding swords, now strangely gentle and patient. I struggled to open my eyes, only seeing Adrian's deep black eyes burning like stars. Hazily I called out, sworn brother. That call immediately sobered him. He was her sworn brother in name. The Marquis had no wife, Eleanor had no husband, but Eleanor only felt sibling affection toward him. Adrian trembled, released his hand, suddenly stood and retreated 2 steps. He had crossed boundaries. I dreamed again of my previous life. Adrian was noble from birth, his character extremely proud. He hated most being forced, detested most being compelled. Though the Wei clan had pushed me into the position of Marchioness, they gained no benefits. Instead they earned Adrian's resentment. Those with official positions in the Wei clan all had their mistakes exposed and were dismissed, leaving only empty royal titles. After all, my father died for the country, so Adrian wouldn't go so far as clan vengeance against me. Just that in our early married years, he campaigned far from home, meetings few, separations many. Even when returning to Shangyang, his gaze never passed over me. But I still liked him. I often asked Nanny Han whom Adrian respected most. Sometimes I rejoiced at small sweetnesses Adrian granted, sometimes grieved over doing something wrong that angered him. She just smiled at me saying, my lady, his lordship likes you. He's just been proud since childhood, needs more time. A young couple, with his lordship so stubborn, always needs time to harmonize. I guessed she only said this to comfort me, but I wasn't completely ignorant. Take welcoming him back from victorious battles. In our early married years, I waited at Xiangyang Palace gates. Willow catkins filled the air. He could ride past nonchalantly without a glance. Later he'd nod slightly, say a couple words. Later still, when ice melted and snow warmed, before even reaching the palace gates he'd dismount, look at me, then stride over. Just that the ice melting period didn't last long before Sophia's matter occurred. In this dream, I still dreamed of Adrian's wet nurse's quarters, but without my appearance. Under the tall jade willow tree, the wet nurse sat in her usual spot, but in the position where I'd sat countless times was Adrian with an unpleasant expression. Iron armor not yet changed, carrying the battlefield's aura yet lost in thought. The moonlight on the steps was cold as water on this night. The wet nurse saw through his thoughts, but deliberately asked, "Your lordship consecutively captured 10 cities and brought Princess Sophia back. At this moment of triumph, why come to this old servant looking dejected?" Adrian pressed his lips tight, grinding out each word painfully. After victory, my heart flew like an arrow. Not wanting to stay another day, I traveled day and night to return, just to see her soon. Yet she told me she wants a divorce. She said these years she's lived uncomfortably. At the mention of divorce, he nearly wanted to rise and chop down the jade willow before him. The wet nurse asked again, "Does your lordship know why the Marchioness speaks of divorce at this time?" "The whole city says your lordship went to war for Princess Sophia and brought her back. What would the Marchioness think?" Adrian frowned, looking up skeptically to refute. "I don't know what poor scholar fabricated this ridiculous tale. 2 sides at war, tens of thousands of soldiers' lives. I'm an upright man. How could I do something so momentous for a woman? These rumors, let them pass. Let fools believe them. But Eleanor is so intelligent. Why would she take them to heart? That day's secret letter from Guanzhong was my spy network informing me Lord Li wasn't there. We could seize the opportunity to attack and take the city. A once in a 1,000 years chance I naturally couldn't miss. Sophia was also besieged in Guanzhong. Rescuing her along the way, though she doesn't share my surname, she's still my father's daughter." He suddenly fell silent, changing his words. "Sharing my blood, what's wrong with saving her? These court politics and palace secrets, why tell a woman?" The wet nurse said, "She's not just any woman, your lordship. She's your wife. If there's concealment, there's distance. If the Marchioness feels uncomfortable, it's surely because you haven't done well enough." Adrian was silent. The early years of marriage were due to his pride. Later, though victories came and he recognized Eleanor's goodness, he still acted as he pleased. Thinking back now, everything forced her to please him, everything required her concessions. Her unhappiness was his fault. After a long while he said, "I've torn up the divorce papers. Tomorrow I'll go find her. I like her. I won't divorce." The jade steps cold and penetrating, the travel-worn Marquis sat watching the stars. All his life he'd hated being forced. All his life he'd hated yielding. Yet for the first time felt fortunate to have been coerced by gratitude, making this marriage from now on having a woman to love. 10,000 miles of mountains and rivers would no longer be lonely. I woke early, bewildered, not knowing if that dream was real or just my imagination. Going outside, I happened upon Adrian training young military officers. Each was exhausted but dared not complain or stop. Seeing me emerge, Adrian turned and called out. Adrian's wounds had completely healed. He decided to set out. Between his brows brimmed sharpness, I could see after returning he'd hunt down those behind this assassination. The court would soon face upheaval again. Worried, I checked Adrian's wounds again. Sworn brother, still shouldn't overexert yourself. Many days fleeing together, plus I already had memories of being his wife, gestures and actions couldn't avoid familiarity. Conversely, Adrian felt no discomfort, normally adjusting his robes, lowering his eyes to look at me, suddenly saying, "This time we didn't reach the ancestral lands. Your name isn't yet hung in the ancestral temple." Eleanor calling me sworn brother is actually inappropriate. Only now did I realize, this morning he hadn't called me sworn sister but directly used my name, Eleanor. In the previous life the Marquis loved calling me that, each syllable, Eleanor, Eleanor. I suppressed the strangeness in my heart, changing my tone to call him, your lordship. Then I saw Adrian relax his brows, as if an important burden had been lifted. Rarely, he pressed his lips into a smile. But then we heard carriages stopping outside. Turning to look, the small village suddenly became brilliant. From a precious carriage, a beauty in white descended, supported by attendants. Before she spoke, her cold fragrance rushed over, immediately revealing her identity: Princess Sophia, descendant of the Han royal line of the Central Plains. Seeing Adrian, she immediately prostrated herself weeping. "How fortunate to meet your lordship here. I beg you to save my life." Unexpectedly, due to chance, Adrian wanting to take me to the ancestral lands to enter the royal genealogy, encountering assassination that changed our original trajectory, we met Princess Sophia passing through. Currently the Han royal line was weakened. Princess Sophia's unparalleled beauty made many covet her. General Yuan of Jizhou, though advanced in years, still shamelessly sought to marry Princess Sophia. Due to the Yuan clan's power, Princess Sophia was forced to marry. Now meeting the Marquis's party, she grasped at straws. Chaotic times were truly difficult to survive, especially for women. Princess Sophia's reputation as beauty of the Central Plains wasn't necessarily not a poisoned arrow. Adrian showed no joy at meeting an old acquaintance. Instead, he looked at me several times before thoughtfully agreeing. He originally had to rush to Wyong City. Now bringing female company naturally made travel inconvenient, so he mobilized a squad from the city to escort us back to Xiangyang while he rode ahead. Splitting paths this way, each going their own road, was the best strategy. We'd only traveled half a day when we heard urgent hoofbeats from outside. The soldiers beside our carriage said in surprise, "Your lordship." I lifted the curtain. The cold air of snow and Adrian's breath rushed in together. Snow on his lashes melted instantly from his breath. Adrian said, "Saving Sophia has no other meaning. First, she was my and my mother's companion in childhood, there's that youthful affection. Second, she and I are half-siblings. Her mother was my father's singing girl. When given to the emperor, she was unknowingly already pregnant, giving birth to Sophia. Though I have many brothers and sisters, she's still blood. I must save her at least once. This is a palace secret, a royal scandal. I didn't want to tell you but feared you'd overthink." After explaining, Adrian breathed a sigh of relief, then removed the tiger tali from his waist and gave it to me. "Anyone holding this tiger tali within Yan territory is as if I personally arrived. The days I'm not here, hold this tiger tali. No one will dare bully you. Anyone who dares disrespect you, kill without mercy." Having said this, he looked deeply at me, then spurred his horse to turn away. He'd ridden halfway just to say these words amid wind and snow. Yet in my previous life I only needed these words. This departure likely meant battlefields again. Several months or half a year without meeting, swords on battlefields have no eyes. I could barely distinguish past from present life, just standing straight to call him back. "Your lordship." Adrian turned in the wind and snow, seeing me smile calmly. "Travel carefully. I'll wait in Xiangyang City for your victorious return. Just like every time before, I'll still be at Xiangyang Palace gates, lighting lanterns waiting for your return. Safe return." Once Adrian left, it was indeed war again. In Xiangyang City, snow cleared and spring came, flowers withered, then summer arrived. After learning the true relationship between Princess Sophia and Adrian, whenever I thought of my previous life's sadness over Princess Sophia, I found it laughable. Though Adrian was busy with war affairs, he still sent me letters. Each one began with, "Respectfully to Eleanor." I wasn't without perception. His behavior increasingly resembled the Adrian of my previous life. Perhaps he'd also remembered early on. He too had memories of the previous life like me. But this wasn't bad, rather an opportunity heaven gave us to start over. When the weather turned cold, Adrian's letters stopped. I guessed he was already returning. I finished shopping at the market, thinking tomorrow I could perhaps begin going to Xiangyang Palace gates to welcome him. Dusk had fallen. 10,000 homes lit their lamps. Then I heard someone calling behind me, just one word, "Eleanor." I turned abruptly, somewhat unable to believe it. At the end of the long street, in the hazy evening air, Adrian in iron armor stood incongruously, looking toward me from afar. He'd returned much earlier than expected. At first he strode toward me, walking hurriedly faster and faster, finally running. In an instant he was before me, embracing my waist, spinning me once in the air before reluctantly setting me down. "I missed you so much, Eleanor." He said he missed me more than when conquering 10 cities. Only now did I know longing had entered bone and marrow. One sentence was complete confession. Adrian had also remembered the previous life. His tall figure had to bend to look straight at me. A lord withdrawing all his sword, bearing aura, lowering his head to apologize. The previous life, I didn't know to treasure precious jade. I was arrogant as a fool, cold and neglectful to you for years. Only later was everything Eleanor yielding to me. Only gradually in dreams did I remember the previous life. I'd made Eleanor suffer so many years of resentment. Whenever I think back, I hate that I can't return to beat my previous self twice over. This life when you didn't want to marry me, instead accepting me as sworn brother, it was only natural. But Eleanor, I love you. I cannot be your sworn brother. Even without remembering the previous life, I couldn't be your sworn brother. I would still love you. He lowered his head, forehead to forehead, eyes glistening. I wonder if our Eleanor would be willing to give me a chance to start over. Wind blew along the long street, carrying someone's new melody flying farther away. I said nothing, only gazing intently at him. I stepped back 2 paces, gently curtsying, smiling gracefully. Welcome back, victorious, your lordship. Just like countless times before, the words I waited to say when Adrian returned. 4 eyes met, hearts connected, that was already the answer. A new life. I was willing to begin again with him. Adrian bent before me, as if wanting to carry me back to Xiangyang Palace. I felt the steady, youthful body beneath me, finally hearing clearly the words in that new melody. How fitting, a line seeming familiar. The swallow returns again. Meaningful lesson from the story. This tale teaches us that true love requires mutual respect, understanding, and the courage to break free from societal obligations. Eleanor's decision to refuse a loveless marriage born from duty shows that self-worth matters more than status. The story reminds us that forcing relationships through obligation breeds resentment, while genuine connections flourish when both parties choose freely. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go, allowing both people to find their authentic paths. The second chance they receive symbolizes how wisdom and maturity can transform past mistakes into deeper appreciation, teaching us that real love isn't about possession or duty, but about choosing each other willingly every day. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.